When I served in the Army, I served as a paratrooper, long family heritage history of serving on both sides of the family. My mom's side of the family were Mexican immigrants from Mexico. The first thing they did when they came to the United States, they served. Their uncles fought as Marine riflemen across the Pacific fighting Japanese. And when I served in the Army, one thing that was beat into our heads by our drill instructors is that there's no black and white soldier, there's no Asian soldier. We're all green, only one color. Some light green, some dark green, but we're all green, we all bleed red. And so that's the spirit that I carry forward in everything I do. As Pastor Manning has said, right now there is a very well-orchestrated attempt to divide this country along racial lines, along socioeconomic lines, divide the police from the people, divide the military from the people, divide you in any way possible and get you fighting each other. So what we have to do is realize that we're being manipulated and fight back against that manipulation and stand together, united. So what I want to do now is bring up, because we're on a battlefield. This is where men from the north and the south bled out on this ground, killed each other. We never want to see that happen again in this country, but right now, as I said, there is an attempt to divide us and get us to fight each other. The powers that be behind both Republicans and Democrats, they're no different. When I was at Yale Law School, one of the things I realized very rapidly is that these rich elitists from the East Coast, from the Northeast, they look at all of you as though you were born with saddles on your backs and they were born with spurs to ride. And they're both of the same mindset. The liberals, the so-called conservatives, they all see themselves as being your rightful rulers. So the only way to fight back against that manipulation is to stand together. So I'm going to ask a couple of reenactors now. We've got reenactors. Both of these young people here are descendants of North and Southern soldiers who fought in the Civil War. I want to bring them up here. And the Union soldier there is going to play taps. Now, in Oath Keepers, we're privileged to have a Ranger veteran named Mad Max Mullins. He's a Ranger Hall of Famer. Last year, he happens to be a big, strong black Ranger, and last year he gave a speech where he said, I haven't got a problem with the Confederate flag, it's a piece of American history. And he talked about how he went by a Confederate grave not too far from his home in Georgia, and it was grown over weeds, and he said, when he walked past that grave, he saluted that grave from one soldier to another. Obviously, he disagrees with slavery. And obviously, slavery was a great abomination and our original sin as a nation. But that doesn't change the fact that every veteran who served on both sides of that war, they deserve the respect and the peace in their graves and in their memorials.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that's being done right now is an attempt to get us to fight each other over a piece of cloth. What we have to do is resist that temptation. We don't brush under the rug our own history. We face it and we deal with it and we go forward as Americans together. So I'm going to ask the young man here to play taps in honor of all veterans who have fought and bled for this country, no matter what side they were on in the Civil War, throughout every war ever fought up to today. As I said, as Jefferson himself, a slave owner, the author of the Declaration of Independence, He recognized that slavery was inconsistent with the credo of America, with the concept that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's why when writing about slavery, and he knew from growing up in that environment as a slave owner, he said, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and his justice will not sleep forever." He understood that was our original sin. But there's something else that has to be said. Abraham Lincoln, in the name of keeping the Union together, and then after the Gettysburg Emancipation, in the name of freeing the slaves, he enslaved free men. He violated the Constitution grossly, detaining over 15,000 Northerners under military law, a direct violation of the Constitution, direct violation of their right to a grand jury indictment and the right to jury trial. And in the name of national security, he claimed the authority to use the international laws of war on Americans. So thankfully, the Supreme Court, in 1866, Ex parte Milligan, put that genie back in the bottle, the martial law genie, and said that was unconstitutional. So in the name of national security, in the name of a just cause, he violated the Constitution and put us down a road towards despotism. Thankfully, the court brought us back on course. But that original sin in the executive branch has been used in recent history to justify the exact claim of power, first by President Bush and now by Obama, that the president can point a finger at any one of you and decide that any one of you could be killed, interned in a military camp, or tried by a military kangaroo court of officers handpicked by the president. That's the claim. Bush claimed this was power, and Obama has also said, hell yeah, I'll take that power, and he has actually had Americans killed overseas. That matters for every one of you. Each one of you now is subject to a claimed illegitimate power that's every bit as totalitarian as anything that Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler claimed the power to do. Life and death over you. There is a secret kill list of people they will kill, and Americans may or may not be on it, have been on it in the past, that still exists to this day. That is where our country is. And this is what's going on, is behind the scenes, behind this circus that we see in front of us in politics, whether it's recent Supreme Court cases, whether it's police violence against people, the reaction to it, all of that, I believe, is an attempt to divide and conquer you and distract you from what they're really doing. What they're doing is they are creating East Germany right here. And it's going to be over, it is over all of you. It's over every one of you. A national security state of unaccountable shadow governments that are hidden in secrecy. NSA, CIA, operating here at home, the FBI. You know the history of the FBI. You know what they did to Martin Luther King? The COINTEL programs, the manipulation, sending subversives into groups, treating anti-war protesters as enemies of the country. And now, of course, anybody who speaks against anything Obama does is automatically labeled a potential terrorist. Whenever I fly, I now have 4 red S's on my ticket everywhere I go. They cannot even give me a ticket. The screen locks up unless they call TSA to give me permission to fly. And it takes 20 minutes at the desk just to get my boarding passes. Why? Why am I on this list? I'm better off. I'd be better off if my name was Abdul. If I were from Afghanistan or a recent Somalian immigrant, I'd probably be just fine. This is where we are, folks. They will use national security, are using it, to crush your rights. Right. And the more, and Obama, the recent shooting in Charleston there, he came to that service not to grieve, not to show solidarity, not to bring Americans together, black and white, but to divide and conquer. He came there to dance in the blood of the victims. Did he go to the ceremonies for the soldiers killed at Fort Hood in a terrorist attack? No, he did not. Did he go to the services for any of the guys that died in Benghazi? No, he did not. But he came to that service with that intent in mind. He is the most divisive president we've had in our history. And unless we fight back by coming together united, then they will win. That's their goal. They cannot beat you if you're together united.
Amen.
Only if you're separated out by artificial separations. Our bedrock must be the concept of natural rights given to us by God, and that was enshrined in our Declaration of Independence and in our Bill of Rights. That is our bedrock. That is our foundation. So I encourage all of you to always keep in mind that most fundamental principle, that we are born with rights given to us by our God, by our Creator, and it's up to us, especially those who swear the oath, whatever branch you're in, whatever color you are, you have an obligation and duty to defend that for all Americans. Last thing I'm going to say is just recently in New York, remember that one big giant Marine football player that was given the cops during Occupy Wall Street the piece of his mind? Remember that?
Yep.
And a lot of those cops looked scared. They were staring at this guy. This guy's freaking huge. I believe his name was Staff Sergeant Thomas. Well, recently, he wound up in medical detention in New York, and there was some question about whether or not that was because of his political views. And we had some New York Oath Keepers I talked to on the phone. They said, well, he's one of those Occupy Wall Street people. And I said, I don't care what he was. I don't care if he's Occupy Wall Street. I don't care what his political views are. If he's being held because of his political views, it's wrong. That is where we have to be consistent. Do not get divided left and right, black and white. Be consistent. Defend even someone who you disagree with. You defend their rights to due process, even if there's someone like Jose Padilla or Yassi Hamdi accused of aiding Al-Qaeda. They still have a right to a jury trial, a right to a trial for treason. So be consistent. Thank you, folks.
Peace and blessings be unto you all. My name is 12